Hello, Kuman229 here, another Topic of the Week video. This week I'll be discussing Legend of Korra and Avatar The Last Airbender, specifically the subbending forms in the shows. This week's topic was submitted by Tumblr anon, and their topic is Subbending forms in Avatar The Last Airbender versus subbending forms in Legend of Korra. Their purpose in world building and in storytelling. With the subbending forms, which I'll just kind of lay these out, as established in Avatar The Last Airbender, you have metal bending for earth bending, you have blood bending for water bending, and lightning generation for fire bending. And then you had some other specialty stuff, the swamp bending thing, which is just slightly different than regular water bending. You had Sparky Boom Man, who had the tattoo on his head, and he could focus basically fire into a concentrated beam and it would just explode on impact. But I'll be talking about the main things there. Avatar The Last Airbender made very good use of the subbending forms, talking about their developments for the world building and the story. First off, I want to talk about metal bending. This is probably the most famous and probably everyone's favorite from the series. That it was something that Toph discovered when she was captured and stuck in a metal cage and was being dragged back to her parents. This is important for a number of reasons. It was shown as, this is how it's a really interesting way to develop Toph's specific abilities. You see, Toph doesn't see, so she uses her feet when she's walking around to sense the earth. And through that, she can basically see pretty much what she needs to walk around. And so it makes sense, though, that when she senses through metal, she senses the earth in it. So she's bending that, allowing her to bend the metal. And that's an really interesting development from it. It really also shows Toph's ingenuity. Stuck in a situation where she couldn't just bend metal, or she couldn't just bend earth, she bent the earth, the bits of earth in the metal. And she made good use of this throughout Book 3, especially in the big final battle. At one point, one thing I love is that she busts through a metal door and then covers herself in the metal as for armor, that was still one of my favorite parts of the show. And it's an interesting, aspect, and it really kind of goes to show you that, not everything is as clear cut as you think. It's not just earth, fire, wind, and water, or air and water, but there's little things that mix and match, and things that you wouldn't expect at first, and it's such an interesting thing, and it's one of the most interesting things that Toph accomplishes. And it is important to notice that Toph was the first metal bender in history. With blood bending for water bending, this was used to great effect when we meet Hama. Because we know that Hama was Water Tribe. She was a waterbender. And she was captured by the Fire Nation and stuck in a cell for decades. She didn't have water to bend, but she realized that she could bend the water in blood. And she could take water from stuff like plants and things and just kill them and take the water. And one of the things that this is done one of the main reasons this is done is that it shows us, this is something that Book 3 did a lot of, and this is one of the key moments. The whole conflict isn't just Fire Nation bad, water, earthbenders, and waterbenders and earthbenders all good. You see that there are bad people on all sides and good people. The whole episode, The Headband, showed you a bunch of just normal people in the Fire Nation. Sure, yeah, they were living in propaganda and, spouting propaganda, but that's just what people were raised on. I mean, it's like, in North Korea, it's like you have these people who are basically brainwashed into believing lies, and yeah, like these people in the Fire Nation, they're fed all this, this propaganda, and so of course they worship Fire Lord Ozai, and I mean, it's some really disturbing stuff, but you see that these are just normal people, especially all the kids in the school that Aang goes to. It's like with, especially Onji, there are jerks there, but yeah, there are normal kids. There are teachers, there are people, there are villagers in the Fire Nation, and they're not bad. Like the Painted Lady, we saw that there were just people there. There were people in the Fire Nation, and they're not all bad. It's not just like a giant blob of evilness. You see that. They do have normal people there. Likewise, just because someone's in Book 2 did this as well with Ba Sing Se, is you saw that there was some pretty horrid evil stuff going on there too. Just because they're Earthbenders, and just because they're fighting against the evil Fire Nation doesn't make them all good. And that's one of the biggest points with Hama and bloodbending. Bloodbending and waterbending has been shown so many times across the series to be helpful. Sure, you could use it with fighting, but you healed with it. You could build structures with it. You could do all this positive stuff. But bloodbending really showed you a dark side to waterbending, and showed that someone who, if she really wanted to, probably could have easily made her way, like once she escaped, she could have probably easily made her way back to the water tribe, whether it's north or south. But she didn't. And, and she'd obviously become deranged to the point where she was totally fine with committing cruel acts of just torture using bloodbending. And she wanted to teach it to Katara. And ultimately her gambit ended up working, that she got Katara to perform bloodbending. It was a really intense episode, and it really, really fleshes out the conflict as it's very black and white. Now, Lightning Generation is used to great effect with Zuko's character. Now, of course, Lightning Generation in Avatar: The Last Airbender is established as being pretty much a royals only. They were the only ones who, really, they were the ones who knew how to do it. And part of it comes in with when Iroh starts explaining this to Zuko, where he starts, he tells him about the elements and stuff, and he's talking about the energies, how you separate the energies and bring them back together when you fire electricity. And you need to be, calm. You need to be stable. Maybe not stable, but, you need to be able to focus. And Zuko, of course, being the fact that a big part of his character arc is establishing that he was always second fiddle to Azula. Where Azula was the prodigy, she could do everything, and we see her lightning bending throughout the series when she shows up. Zuko never accomplishes this. What he does accomplish is lightning redirection, which, when you compare it when Ozai and Azula are using it against him, his character is not about hurting people. It's about defending people and redirecting that fight, that evilness. He takes what is given to him by his sister and his father, and he shoots it back. Because he rejects that kind of, behavior. Ultimately, I should say, through his character arc was 3 seasons long. But and it's used, and I love how it's used, as you can sort of take it as a metaphor for his character. Sure, he could never, and especially once he full on became a good guy, he never did anything truly truly bad like he used to. I mean, the worst he got was Southern Raiders, but that was just because he was so desperate for Katara's attention, or Katara's approval, as part of the gang that he was willing to convince her to commit murder. Anyway, all these subbending forms have great effect in the story, and as you can see them used, and you see that this expands the abilities of our main characters, the introduction of these, with Toph inventing metal bending. Toph inventing metal bending. We see lightning generation explained to us, and we see Zuko basically never actually use it, but he does learn lightning generation, or lightning redirection, which is an extremely useful defensive ability. And we see, blood bending and, the horrors of that. All this stuff is great, and the episodes that they're introduced in, the episodes that they're used in. Oh yeah, also I almost forgot to mention, bringing back the Southern Raiders with blood bending. Katara uses blood bending in the Southern Raiders, and it's really a good way of showing that she's becoming unhinged. Something that horrified her, because when she meets Yan Ra, I believe it's the guy who killed her mother, she goes up and immediately blood bends him. She without a second thought, she's using blood bending, which really should show you that she's out of her freaking mind. If Katara, who's horrified at the brutal cruelty of bloodbending, is using it without a thought. And that was a great part of her little arc, which coming to realize she was going way too far with what she was doing. And that's again going back to what I interrupted. And all this is used to great effect within the story of Avatar: The Last Airbender. The same cannot be said for Legend of Korra. You see, with Legend of Korra, you have this stuff is used willy-nilly because it looks cool, and that's it. Mako can shoot lightning. What are the ramifications of lightning generation becoming more commonplace rather than just being something that the royal Fire Nation family can do? Nothing, actually. It's never mentioned. It's never discussed. Because we see Mako in Book 1 with other firebenders shooting lightning, and at a plant, generating power, which is an interesting idea. But the ramifications of this becoming more commonplace are never touched upon, and that in and of itself is really dumb. I remember when I was first watching, because this happened in episode 3, the Revelation. I want to say it's in episode 3. Yeah, it is in episode 3, because that's when he because that's also the same episode that had Bolin get kidnapped. And yeah, and then Mako and Korra snuck into the Equalist rally. Yeah. When Mako just does it. Mako does lightning, and it's also not portrayed with the severity that Avatar: The Last Airbender did. Because Avatar: The Last Airbender made it very clear that lightning, you kill people with that. Aang is killed with it, and he's only resurrected by the magical water that Katara had. Yeah, it's shown as a pretty dangerous thing. When someone is shooting someone with lightning, it's the intent to kill. And that's why you see that when Azula and Ozai are the ones who use it regularly, they want to kill someone. And even when Azula was first trying to use lightning, and Iroh grabs her and redirects it, which I should also say that's a good thing for Iroh's character. I mean, whenever it's shown as extremely powerful in Avatar: The Last Airbender. It destroys stuff. Lightning isn't like fire, which has plenty of uses to help people, and as we had our whole episode about the Aang's life-changing field trip with Zuko. Lightning, it's like that's used with the intent to kill. And then in Legend of Korra, Mako just does it all the time because he looks cool. I mean, sure, Lightning Bolt Zolt uses it, and you could say that he was using it with the intent to kill, and it fits his character, and I did like that. But when you have Mako just using it on people, and he's being electrocuted, and all the stuff with lightning is just No, it's not a big deal. Even Amon, when he gets shot with lightning at the end of book 1, he's just like, bah, bah. Well, that was a thing. Like, this killed people. This could kill people. You felt like this was when it was being used to kill people. Now Mako just does it because, though Mako does kill someone in book 3 with lightning. But don't worry, they never bring it up. They never bring up that they slaughter people at the end of book 3. They're the heroes, you know? But, I mean, yeah, that stuff is just never used. Metal bending is literally just there because it looks cool. Again, all this stuff is there because it looks cool. Book 1 has this in spades. And the rest of the series, the rest of the episodes do. Especially once Korra learns metal bending. Yeah, she just picks it up. Book 3 has also a lot of that, because Bolin will just lava bend. Avatar exclusive ability now can just be performed by anyone now, including Bolin. There's really not a whole lot to say on exactly the things that Legend of Korra does with the subbending forms, because it can all be summed up as, it's here to look cool. When you see bloodbending used in Legend of Korra, there's only one time where bloodbending was used that really served the plot. The revelation that Tarlok was a bloodbender. Now, him doing it without the full moon, I don't really have a problem with that. An extraordinarily powerful waterbender, fine. I can buy that. I'm totally cool with that. In fact, that's the only time when something is done like that in Legend of Korra that I actually think it works. The revelation that Tarlok is a bloodbender, right, and the revelation that it basically comes with the shocking revelation that, no, yeah, this guy, he's evil. So when he's fighting Korra, and Korra's basically stopping him because, you know, she's the Avatar, and he goes, wah, and stops her, and he bloodbends her. Like, I remember watching that episode back when it first aired, and my jaw dropped. Everyone's, like, I was watching with a group of people, our jaws dropped at that moment when we realized that, when you found out that Tarlok was a bloodbender, and he used it on Korra, like, that is the only time subbending was used to great effect. If it was just that, it would have been a fine use. But it wasn't, because Break. Metal bending in the Metal Bending Police is just there to look cool. It's an interesting idea, and I actually do like the idea that Toph started a whole police force with metal benders. Which, again, I do actually like the idea that Toph became a police officer. It seems, you know, people think it's totally out of character, but I like the idea that she could have developed over 30-something years into an actual responsible adult. I like that. What I don't like is metal bending just being used because it looks cool, where people can just do metal bending. And bloodbending in book 1 especially. It was used as nothing but a cheap plot device. It was a MacGuffin. It was a get-out-of-jail-free card. You see, it's like, I shouldn't even, I really hate to bring this up because I hate it so much. Psychic bloodbending. What? You mean that people can bend with their mind now? All these thousands and thousands of years of people having to do movements, even small, minute movements like Boomy showed when he was captured. You don't even need to do that? You can just do it with your mind? Well, I'm sure glad that was established in Avatar: The Last Airbender, so it made sense here. It's there to look cool. Bloodbending was used as the explanation for everything Amon did. And that is... it devalued his character so much. Now... he uses bloodbending to take people's bending away. it wasn't energy bending like I thought, because it would actually have been a really, really interesting use to have the villain of book 1 do energy bending, because that would have actually been a fantastic answer to all the criticisms from the end of Avatar: The Last Airbender that energy bending was simply just Deus Ex Machina. Well, no, if you establish that the villain can do it, and the villain has all these powers that Aang had, or not all the powers, but he had that power that Aang had, and uses it against Korra. Oh, now the tables have turned. And that's an interesting thing to think about. That's an interesting aspect to take, but of course they didn't do that because that would have been a cool idea. No, it's bloodbending. How does bloodbending stop or block bending? It's never explained. Ever. Brian and Mike don't even know how that works. Because a lot of stuff in Avatar or in Legend of Korra, they're just like, well, you know, I don't know how that works, especially when you get to book 2 and you get to the Jinora Ex Machina of it. It's besides the point. It's not what I'm talking about. You have bloodbending used as just a Deus Ex Machina, just to do stuff. And there was also that really cool moment in that, you know, that lodge that Tarlok took Korra to, when Amon shows up and Tarlok bloodbends him, and then Amon is just like, and he just keeps walking over and then just debends Tarlok. I mean, the fact that it was established that he did that, he just bloodbended, he out bloodbended him. It was like, I remember, because everyone was so impressed that Amon just had the sheer tenacity to just ignore bloodbending. Like, not just ignore it, but he powered through it. He overpowered Tarlok's ability to bloodbend with his sheer tenacity and badassery, and then debended him. Like, that was cool, but no, he was just bloodbending. Honestly, bloodbendings are used like almost used like nanomachines in Metal Gear Solid 4. How did it work? Bloodbending. And really, so much, it's like, especially when like Korra picks up metal bending, it's like, it's just there to, when it's used with Korra, it's literally just used to add another bullet point to her character of what she can do. It's like, yeah, Avatar State, of course, Master of all 4 elements, Metal Bender. I'm surprised they didn't give her every single form available over the course of the show, but that would have made her a Mary Sue. She pretty much was one anyway, especially when her being crippled and having PTSD was all resolved, just gone. By the way, she just gets up out of a wheelchair and doesn't have problems anymore. Because it was only poison. It was poison in her for 3 years. But you can just pull it out. No big deal, you know. Because Korra can't suffer much, I guess. But anyway, that's besides the point. But yeah, Legend of Korra didn't do hardly squat with subbending forms. And it's so disappointing. All these cool ideas that they could have done, but didn't. And there's a lot that you can say with Legend of Korra as a disappointment, and the subbending forms was definitely one of them. Not handled with any of the skill or intelligence that Avatar: The Last Airbender handled them with. Well, I think that's it for this week's topic. If you want to submit a topic, just make sure to follow the rules down below, and if you're on YouTube, comment below. You know, just leave a comment on what you want me to talk about. Or if you're on Tumblr, send me an ask and do topic : and then whatever topic you want me to talk about. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. And thank you for watching.